that's where the power is of group lessons, I believe. And you can just do wonders in leveling the playing field, because obviously this is just simple math. The price of a lesson gets shared among students, so it just drops naturally, while, giving the tutor substantial earnings.
Kind of a little bit like Zoom and Google Ads and your own invoicing system kind of rolled into one.
Absolutely. That's an extremely good summary. I think I could have said that from the beginning. Music is an amazing and a deep part of my life, and I'll never, ever leave it on the side, no matter what I do. And the cool thing about LessonWise is that I still get to be involved with music.
Sometimes in my tutoring sessions, I'm not always sure who the educator is and who the learner is.
And by providing tutors with direct access to such an infrastructure for group lessons, basically this would reduce the price paid per pupil and give the tutor more earnings potential at the same time. And I think that was the main driver. And I think that same night we founded LessonWise, actually.
Welcome to the Qualified Tutor Podcast. I'm your host, Ludo Miller, and I'll be interviewing tutors and thought leaders from across the tutoring landscape to inspire, inform, and motivate you to become the best tutor you can be. The Qualified Tutor community is a safe and supportive space for tutors who love to learn and grow. We offer training, resources, ideas, and a chance to connect with like-minded tutors. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes.
Hello and welcome to the Qualified Tutor Podcast. My name is Ludo Miller, host of this podcast, the one that brings you the best conversations around tutoring and edtech and education in the current landscape. And today we are welcoming on Manfred Olbrich. Now, as a brief introduction before we get into the heart of Manfred's journey and how he's come to establish his new company, LessonWise, please let me just give you a little introduction. So, as I said, Manfred is the founder of LessonWise, which is a new all-in-one online environment, a platform which caters to both students and tutors. For students, there are easy, streamlined access to resources, courses and learning from the top tutors in the world. And for tutors, they can find direct access to students via Manfred, via LessonWise's simple online advertising space, as well as an integrated system, including an online classroom, reports, resources, assessment support, and much, much more. Sounds pretty good, to be honest. And today we want to explore LessonWise a little bit further. But more than that, we want to find out Manfred's journey and ethos, including how he's planning to support tutors in helping them scale their service. And amongst all this, we will be discussing the impact of the pandemic on the mental health of both children and tutors. What's clear is that this is central to Manfred's mission. And Manfred's also a keen electric guitarist. So if we're lucky, we'll hear a little bit more about that too, but I can't promise anything. So welcome to the QT podcast, Manfred.
Oh, thank you so much, Lou. That was a fantastic introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's really a pleasure. And it's amazing to be diving into your journey and LessonWise's journey, really at the start of this growth. Now, regular listeners of the QT podcast will know this first question. I can always hear them in the back of my head repeating this question because it's how we like to start, because it sets out our guest, lets our listeners know about our guest kind of very in depth. Now, that first question, Manfred, is what is your why as a tutor?
That is a great question. I think we were talking about this at the beginning. It's probably the reason why you keep on doing something if you know why you're doing it, right? So the reason why I tutor is basically, I think it enables me to impact people's lives and, for the better. And on top of this, I think I'm very passionate about teaching in general. And I believe that I'm decently good at explaining things. And so if you're able to say, use your skills and your talents and your passions and to say all the things you're good at to improve someone's life, I think you probably have the one true recipe to be, or to live a meaningful life and a purposeful life. And on top of that, I think I just enjoy it really. I think it's exciting, it's rewarding, it's energizing. And, I remember the first time that I was exposed to tutoring altogether. I think it was 18 or 19. I was doing my bachelor's degree in engineering back home. And I remember our neighbor knocked on the door and he asked me if I could, please help his daughter with some physics question or something. I think this would have been high school physics, probably. So I got a little nervous because I really wasn't sure if I could remember all that stuff that I had learned. Maybe the question was a little too hard and I was going to just disappoint my neighbor, and his daughter would have gone out the door probably more confused than before. But with all those nerves, I think I said, okay, yeah, let me try. So basically she showed me the exercise. And at first I was like, yeah, what is this? I really don't know what this is. So I was just staring at the question, all quiet, and she was looking at me and like all eyes on me. And then somehow, I don't know how this happened, but, from the remote areas of my brain, I sort of recognized that it was Coulomb's law, physics, something related to attraction and repulsion between particles. So I recognized the formula and, all the physical properties and the variables and whatnot. And the problem was that she wasn't able to get the right answer, right? So I kind of ran the calculations myself again. And, effectively, I also wasn't able to get the answer right. And long story short, basically, after trying several times with the calculator, I realized that two of the numbers she gave me were meant to be written in standard notation, but she just forgot to write it on the paper. And so I kind of noticed that, and I reran the calculation with the right numbers, and I got it right that time. Which is, something small, but I know it just made me realize that gave me an incredible sense of fulfillment. She was super happy about it, that I was able to help her. And, I utilized my knowledge and my background to help someone else. And she went out happy. I was fulfilled. Yeah. And it showed me that I was able to internalize knowledge decent enough, right, to be able to impart it. I was able to explain something in a comprehensive way. And I was able to problem solve there on the spot. And I think these are all qualities that educators have. So I think that's what keeps me going back to tutoring, the meaning that it gives me. And I think it's quite empowering, the fact that you can help someone with your skills and the things you're good at. That would be my why.
Yeah, that's a wonderful why. Isn't it funny that those same skills that we try and teach to our students, being able to problem solve on the spot and being responsive are exactly the skills that make a good tutor. Isn't it funny, those similarities between educator and learner?
It is. I think there's a lot of common sense there. You kind of behave the same way as a student, at least how you analyze things. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in my tutoring sessions, I'm not always sure who the educator is and who the learner is. Sometimes I feel like I'm learning just as much from the student that I'm meant to be tutoring.
Absolutely. I think if you treat it like that and it becomes a conversation, I think you sort of foster an environment where they're comfortable, they speak up, and they're not really afraid to make mistakes, and it becomes more conversation, and that empowers them as well. So it's like they also provide you with learning in the same session. And it's a fantastic thing. And not to mention that you can actually, this is another thing I forgot to mention, you're actually able to measure the impact of your work quite rapidly, I would say. That's the great thing about tutoring. You can actually sense improvement, 2 weeks down the line from the moment you take on a student. And that's amazing. I don't think you can get that so easily or quickly with other professions, which is something I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, and unlike other professions, that progress is the intellectual or personal development of a child, which is just the kind of the purest kind of progress to witness, isn't it? It's not a kind of company's economic growth or the improvement of a kind of machine or something. It is a child in front of you increasing their academic potential or their kind of personal potential, which is. And it's something they can take on for a lifetime, really. I still remember those testimonials from like 3 years ago. And they went on to great universities, went on to study engineering, architecture and whatnot. And you sort of influence that a little bit. Obviously, it's all down to their skills and their effort, but you were part of that journey, which is quite rewarding. Now, can you tell us, Manfred, a little bit more about why you started LessonWise?
Yes, absolutely. So just a little bit of background. So I've been tutoring for, since 2014, that's 7 years now. Working with agencies and working also with my own, private clients and not. And I think back in 2019, I was teaching, I think 30 to 35 hours of tuition per week, which for me, it's enormous amounts of hours. I was online and face-to-face. And, towards the end of that year, I kind of realized this is a little bit too much. I don't have any more capacity. I reached a cap, basically. So something that I think probably happens to most tutors. It probably happened to you or, someone most probably. So I couldn't enroll any more students because I just didn't have any more hours, right? But I still felt a strong sort of drive and desire to grow and to reach out to more students because, I don't know, I was doing quite well. I was being referred by my clients and stuff, so word of mouth was kicking in. So I felt like I had this great momentum, right? But that's it. I just didn't have any more hours. I reached the cap, the end of my career, kind of. So I realized that the only way to expand, you probably imagine what that is to reach more students at the same time, right? Simultaneously. And as you also may imagine, the only way to do that is with online tuition, right? So doing group lessons online. That to me was sort of the main driver back then. And so I was doing a guitar lesson with a student of mine, and I decided to stay a bit longer to have a chat with his dad. We became friends. I had been tutoring him for the past 2 years. And so I told him about my intentions. I wanted to scale through online tuition and ask him on advice and stuff. And, how do you reach multiple students at a time? I asked him. And I said, you can post on social media, right? You can, launch a sponsored ad, but you can, as you may imagine, the costs keep on piling up. It's super expensive. And there's not really a guarantee that any student will bite on it or engage, that there's no guarantee whatsoever. You can also post on Facebook groups. As we were saying at the beginning, there's thousands of users there, but no one really engages with anything you say. I've even posted videos of myself introducing my skills, my experience and stuff, and it never really seems to work. So yeah, the engagement from students and parents was non-existent in those groups. And so, I was talking to him about that, and he thought of, that reminded him of an article he had read before about the rockstar tutors of Hong Kong, I think it was, or South Korea. These guys were based, yes, they're basically,
posters, yeah.
It's insane, right? I think these guys were teaching like 10,000 students at a time or something wild like that. And I think they were earning up from $6 million a year as pretty much a football player. I'm not saying that I wanted to become that, but it seemed to be in that direction. How did these guys manage to do that? So that's basically how we started the conversation. We started bouncing off ideas of each other, and we just basically realized that there aren't any accessible platforms that are meant to do that specifically, right? Designed to help the tutors scale up, not to become the rock star, but to give them a platform to do that, namely. And by scaling up, I mean, empowering them, giving them direct access to students, and also giving them the tools that they need to effectively run those scalable or, those upscaled lessons for groups of students at a time. And, on the other hand, we also, as you may imagine, there's a big portion of society that cannot afford private tutoring, right? I think there's a research by the Sutton Trust that says that children that come from more, say, affluent backgrounds, I think they're twice as likely to receive private tutoring than those from lower income families. That's something that we were also thinking at the time. So we also saw a need on that side of the equation, at the student side. So one was trying to empower the tutor like myself. I was trying to find a solution for me, actually. But also, there's also a problem on the student side. So we saw a need for a platform that would effectively make tutoring affordable. Right. That being said, it's just some families just can't afford it. And one that would effectively help close that attainment gaps. Because if you think about it, so double the number of children that stem from highly affluent backgrounds, they just have a bigger likelihood to succeed in the future. That's just how it is. And this is something that you probably know that it has been exaggerated or exacerbated by school closures and the lockdown and all that. So that's what we envisioned this, helping the tutor scale up and, grow while also making it affordable for students. That was the reasoning behind it. And we wanted to just provide a streamlined infrastructure where the tutors and the students are just able to seamlessly connect, and where tutors can, advertise themselves, and deliver group lessons, also one-on-one. And by providing tutors with direct access to such an infrastructure for group lessons, basically this would reduce the price paid per pupil and give the tutor more earnings potential at the same time. And I think that was the main driver. And I think that same night we founded LessonWise, actually. We shook hands and stuff, and we just started drafting all the requirements, all the things we would like to have on it. And it took us the entire pandemic, I think, the first two lockdowns to write all the requirements we needed. And then we reached out to a company for the development phase, and we spent the entire 2020 in developing it, making sure every single functionality is working well. I started doing my own lessons there, trying to test it and stuff like that. It took us, from 2019 all the way to May 2021, almost, what is that, a little bit more than a year. I can't count at the moment, but that'll be around that time. So just to summarize it, LessonWise basically is an online interactive platform that is designed to seamlessly connect tutors and students worldwide. And we provide them with the built-in tools they need to run their live courses online. And the way we do this is basically we provide this all-in-one vehicle that they can access for free. Tutors can advertise themselves for free. They can contact and interact with other, say, like-minded tutors, or reach out to students directly, message them, and vice versa. They can create tasks and assessments. They can share resources. They can do group lessons. As I said, that's the main scaling factor that we are able to offer. They can still do one-on-one lessons. And we offer them a feature-packed virtual classroom, which is something that I've experienced with for a long time. Tried quite a few of those. And I just try to kind of take a little bit of the best of everyone or every single platform that I've used in the past and, build it into one that is not only the classroom, but you have all these other add-ons to you as a tutor that will help you scale, give you promotion, you can advertise yourself, reach out to students, and it just happens from a single domain. It's, I think, quite a powerful idea. And lastly, we also facilitate the payments, right? So every time you create a course or a lesson, the student enrolls and they get charged at the source, basically. So that payment is held by a payment processor. And as soon as you deliver a lesson, I think it's half an hour later, the payment gets processed automatically and it gets sent straight to the tutor. That was my summary of LessonWise story.
Yeah. So kind of a little bit like Zoom and Google Ads and your own invoicing system kind of rolled into one.
Absolutely. That's an extremely good summary. I think I could have said that from the beginning, but I think I went too deep into it.
To join the growing number of qualified tutors, enroll now for the Level 3 Qualification for Tutors. This 8-week online facilitated course covers the roles and responsibilities involved in teaching and learning, with a particular focus on inclusion, assessment, and feedback. Upon completion, you'll be awarded a Level 3 in Education and Training from Ofqual recognised training provider Highfield Qualifications. You will also gain a Qualified Tutor Quality Mark, the independent quality mark for tutors. Whatever your starting point, a qualification for tutors has to be the next step. Enroll today at qualifiedtutor.org/training.
Now, there's an area that I want to just kind of delve into a little bit more, which is how do you, Manfred, how do you find the top tutors? How do you go about filling out your roster of tutors for LessonWise?
With regards to that, our approach is to make it as open as possible. So we don't really have a stringent vetting process whatsoever. So anyone with expertise or knowledge or skills is able to, jump on it and jump on board and create a profile and start tutoring. Really, that's what it is. There's no guarantee that they will get students, but we want to keep it as open as possible. But in the topic of finding a good tutor, I think, in my opinion, other than the tutor being quite experienced, say they've taught a high number of hours and they have a track record of students and like parent satisfaction, they have testimonials. That's a given. That's something you always look for, right? But I think one key thing that I've noticed over the last year or so is that those who introduce themselves with a small video, where they talk about their experiences, they talk about why they're a tutor, the question you asked me today, for example, what their approach is to teaching, like, maybe some interesting experiences or case studies in the past. I don't know how they dealt with a student with a particular learning difficulty, that kind of stuff. So a video, basically, and how they approach a given problem in the past with a student, how creative they were and so forth. I think this can go a long, long way in terms of engaging parents and students. So that's a good way to notice who is a good tutor, in my opinion. That's, it's those tutors that go out of their way to do a video that stand out. Because, think about those Facebook groups, thousands and thousands of tutors. They post this very beautiful kind of like, text posts with images and infographics and stuff. But they just get one like or no one really comments on it. They don't get any students that way. So the ones that actually take the time to curate a video showing themselves, those are the ones that stand out. And they actually end up being great tutors. That's how I've noticed myself. At least that has been my experience. It can show that they're either patient or empathetic. You can see how they articulate the sentences, and it gives you an idea of it gives you an overall picture of the tutor, I think. And I think other than that, those who provide a little bit of value up front, that they either offer a free session, introductory session, or like a getting acquainted conversation, conference call. And in terms of where to find them, that can be quite complex, as I mentioned. Facebook groups, really, as a parent or a student, you are going to have to spend several days trying to find someone. Because there's so much going on. There's ads all over. There's millions of people there engaging every day. So how do you find them? Obviously, you also have the agencies that have a curated roster of tutors. Absolutely, they do a fantastic job on that front. But some parents are not necessarily able to afford those. So, and also not to mention that there's no guarantee that they will be satisfied with that tutor. So I think, just look out for a video. Those tutors who spend or go out of their way to display what they're good at in a short video, something like 45 seconds. That's something that I recommend to all tutors. I did it myself for LessonWise because I also have my own tutoring profile there. I still do my up to 5 hours a week still. And I think it goes a long way because it shows how committed they are, and it creates a lot of engagement.
So perhaps part of our tutor training then as qualified tutors should include a sort of video editing module as well.
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, and it doesn't need to be perfect, the perfect video. Just a little bit of good lighting, and just do it on your phone. Just maybe prep the things you want to say, why you tutor, experiences in the past, and just give an overall image of yourself as a tutor. That, in my opinion, does wonders, and I think parents do engage with that. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I think we're seeing the power of video across many marketing channels, and
it is,
what you're describing here is individualized promotion, self-promotion for tutors. So absolutely, we're very much behind that. Now, you mentioned there that group sessions online, specifically online group sessions, are one of the best ways for tutors to scale their service. What is the true power of group sessions online? And crucially, Manfred, how do we make them affordable? How are we able to make them affordable to make them so cheap that the tutor can also earn a living from them?
That's an amazing question. Actually, we have a tutor now on LessonWise. He created a course, basically. I think it was an introduction to A-level maths. And I think the way he set it out is that he will onboard, I think, or enroll 15 students, and he will charge just £5 each student, but he's targeting specifically those from disadvantaged backgrounds. So he went to a state-funded school. So what he's going to do is going to basically reach out to the school directly and say, hey, I'm offering this. I know pupils have struggled throughout the pandemic. They didn't have access to online learning per se. And that's just, widening that attainment gap 100%. So that's just one individual, right? If every single private tutor, quality tutor is able to do something like this, catering to state-funded schools, can you imagine the power of that? That's the way I see it. I know the National Tutoring Program has been launched, and that is an amazing initiative, and it's doing wonders. But at the individual level, there's a lot of room there for empowerment. Because yes, that tutor that I just mentioned, he will be earning quite a decent amount of money, and he will be able to tailor that lesson to the needs of pupils that need it the most. And it's it's a very beautiful win-win situation right there. I think going further, there's a couple of statistics to mention. I think the Education Endowment Fund, especially after the first round of the National Tutoring Program, they said that there's been significant evidence that group tuition is effective, right? It goes against it. People just, focusing on one-on-one, that's it. There's nothing beyond one-on-one. Not necessarily true. I think there's evidence coming up now that it is effective. And it is particularly effective with pupils if it's targeted at pupils' specific needs. And specifically those that are at a disadvantage because they have that real need to be catered to in a way and have access to a quality tutor. And I think research has also shown that small group tutoring is as effective as online learning, going on that point again, that it is not completely true that one-on-one is the only way to go. In addition to this, groups will allow students to learn with friends, right? It will enable the social interactions between them, which can do wonders in terms of revision. There's a support group right there. Obviously, the contingency plan that tutors need to have is absolutely different than one-on-one. You would have to deal with completely different situations. Every pupil has different learning, say difficulties, or they don't necessarily have the same level of attainment. So how do you kind of make it work in a group, especially online? I don't know. One small recommendation is to get them to participate. That's a good recommendation. If one is falling behind, then you ask the ones that are great to try to explain that. So it becomes a group effort. And with regards to making it more affordable, again, a little bit more of statistics. I think the Sutton Trust said that, as I mentioned before, children from wealthier backgrounds are twice as likely to get private tuition than those that aren't. That means basically that they have a disproportionate advantage in terms of their level of attainment, and what that's going to play out in their social mobility prospects in the future. And if we talk about the impact of the pandemic, another report that I read, also by the trust, they said that over half of the teachers, I think it was 55% of the people they surveyed, they reported lower than normal standard of work from pupils of state-funded schools. And I think 84% of teachers surveyed were thinking that lockdown and all the disruptions that occurred basically would increase the attainment gap significantly. And so I believe that's where the power is. We can sort out this situation if you empower the individual tutors, the private tutors that work, that are sought after, they're quality tutors from top UK universities, to deliver group lessons and administer all the process and all the logistical aspect of it themselves. That's where the power is of group lessons, I believe. And you can just do wonders in leveling the playing field, because obviously this is just simple math. The price of a lesson gets shared among students, so it just drops naturally, while giving the tutor substantial earnings. I think that's the power of group lessons.
I think that's a very simple, or simply put, solution as well. I'm not saying that in practice that can be easily implemented. Nothing really can in terms of the pandemic and trying to work through these solutions to national education. But
it's really hard, yeah.
But actually, what you're suggesting there, isn't limited to national education. And in fact, this on the theme of, this is a theme that I've had, a conversation that I've had with several tutors that QT knows that within the kind of qualified tutor community, is that actually online group tutoring can bring together students from the UK, Hong Kong, South America, Africa, and that kind of combination of students within a single group session is amazing for improving the kind of worldliness and shared cultures and shared learning strategies from around the world. So
100%, yeah.
So I think that's a really positive kind of step. I think that, you know, initiatives like LessonWise and like the NTP will allow that to flourish. So absolutely. Now, just kind of coming to the end of this conversation, Manfred, I've got two final questions that you know, that are gonna. I hope that you're able to kind of, you've got answers to these, but they're gonna slightly, you know, hit you by surprise. But the first question is, no, don't worry, you don't have to be daunted by it. The first question is, what's next for your musical career, Manfred?
Oh wow, that's amazing. So okay, just a bit of background. I did do my music degree here in London, and I did work as a full-time musician for about 1.5 years, just doing tons of session gigs and stuff. I think I did 1 year, I did 250 gigs in central London, something crazy like that. I love music. I think is the one thing that would make 8 hours seem like 5 minutes. The only thing in my life that, you know, makes me so deeply passionate and creative. And it just, you know, it's a sublime way to get in touch with your own soul, let's say. But having said that, when I was working as a full-time musician and, you know, earning a living from it and gigging and stuff and making money out of it, there was a crazy clash within me. So when I mix money and something as pristine and beautiful as music, it just doesn't work for me. And I just speak of myself. My mates still play music for a living, and they are doing amazing stuff, and they still do creative projects on the side, but they also still do the function gigs. But for me, it just doesn't work. When I have to rely on music for a living, it just, I think it kills the passion a little bit, and it's quite sad. It just frustrates me a little bit too much, and I stop enjoying it. I resent it a little bit. So I just made that decision of not relying on music for a living and focused a little bit more on tutoring. But that doesn't mean that I don't do music. I still work fully on my creative projects. I'm actually currently recording a 12-track album with a drummer and percussionist. So it's basically world music, you know, rhythms from Africa, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Haiti, a lot of, you know, really rhythmical guitars and tons of percussions going on, synthesizers. It's quite a cool concept. And that's in the pipeline, actually. That's going to be hopefully finished by the end of the year, provided I have the time to finish it. But I think, you know, music is an amazing and a deep part of my life, and I'll never, ever leave it on the side, no matter what I do. And the cool thing about LessonWise is that I still get to be involved with music. I was doing a jazz lesson the other day with a friend of mine that lives in Ireland. He's a piano player, but he also plays the guitar. So he just asked me, hey, can you teach me a little bit of harmony? So we did a little bit of bossa nova and we jammed a bit on the platform. So I still get to be in touch with my musical side quite a bit. But yeah, I think music will forever be a part of my life. That I'm going to become famous, I doubt it. Well, let's see what happens with that album.
Well, I was going to ask whether you could give us a little kind of excerpt on this podcast, but perhaps that's too late for that now.
Yeah.
Very nice, though. I mean, we truly believe in the power of music in education, and in fact, you know, the upcoming Love Tutoring Festival 2, which is taking place on, you know, from January the 24th to January the 28th. 2022 will certainly have a big music and education feel to it. So here publicly now, Manfred, is my invitation for you to take part in Love Tutoring Festival 2.
I will write that down right now.
Yes, very good. Now, just as you're writing that down, I'm going to force you to multitask. My final question for this podcast, Manfred, is what message do you have for tutors listening into this podcast now with regard to LessonWise? What can they do now off the back of listening to this podcast?
Just use it. Register. We have rolled this out at completely 0% commission. We are rolling this out free of charge. So just create a profile and start tutoring. Probably right now you won't see that scaling effect that I referred to at the beginning, but this will come. We are We are striving to build a global student community that will be seen in the coming months. And I think those that are join us from the outset, they will be prioritized by our algorithms in the future. And you just will have direct access to this global community. And as I said, we are not charging absolutely anything. So just enjoy the convenience of the platform, create a profile, and start teaching. And if you manage to do group lessons, fantastic. And do let me know. I'm really looking forward to seeing tutors doing group lessons.
There it is. That's your POA. That's your action, your call to action. Do you have an email, Manfred, that people can contact you on easily?
Absolutely, yeah. So that'll be Manfred.Olbrich, so that's first name dot last name, at LessonWise.org. Just definitely drop me a line if you have any questions. As I said, it's free of charge. You get to enjoy all this technology for free. And for me, it's about providing value up front at the beginning. I don't really care about monetizing this at the moment, just because I want people to see the value of it. And that's why every tutor or any tutor that is interested, just simply register, reach out to us. We can help you out with any questions. And yeah, that's the email right there.
There we go. LessonWise.org is where you want to head. If you've got any questions, Manfred.Olbrich at LessonWise.org. Both of those links will be in the show notes below, but there they are to you. Thank you so much, Manfred, for joining us. We will certainly be speaking to you again soon, and we would love to have you back on, perhaps when LessonWise is a few more months down its career, down its journey. But I'd like to say a huge thank you again, Manfred, for speaking about LessonWise again, for chatting to us about your journey and what you believe in, what you hold dear.
Thank you so much, Lou, for having me today. This is a first for me. It was quite interesting to do a podcast, and I really, really appreciate you given me the opportunity to reach out to people and tell my story. Thank you so much.
Okay, cheerio then.
Thanks for listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast, where tutors share their expertise to support the tutoring community. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes below. We exist to connect, share, and learn with you, because tutoring is a small job that makes a big difference.